Good evening, everyone. My name is Ross Bruck. I am the chair of the Lower Makefield Township Planning Commission. This is the meeting for May 9th, 2022. In attendance, in addition to myself, we have Anthony Bush, Dawn Stern, and Adrian Costello. I call this meeting to order. Our first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from our February 7th, 2022 meeting. Other commission members, have you had an opportunity to review? Do you have any questions, comments, edits? And if none, do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
A motion that we approve the minutes of February 7, 2022.
Dawn, you are on mute.
Sorry. I don't think I was in attendance at the last the meeting, so I need to abstain from that.
Very good.
If I recall.
I believe that's accurate. Adrian?
I'll second it.
All right. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Minutes are approved. We have two items on the agenda tonight, in addition to the approval of minutes, obviously. First number is a minor subdivision, number 686. Jim, could I ask you to give a little bit of a history here on this matter so that we're all on the same page?
Certainly. The property is located at the intersection of Sutphen Road and Makefield Road, directly north across the street from the Lutheran Church. Currently, the property has a couple of houses on it, otherwise vacant, and basically they're proposing to subdivide off one more lot from the property. They did get variances that were noted in the letter by Remington, Vernick, and Beach at a prior zoning hearing board meeting a few months ago.
Very good. And then we also have a letter. Andy, is Andy in attendance? Yeah, sorry, Andy, I said needed to find you there. Comments on that letter and additional information that should be relevant to this discussion, or should we just proceed with regards to going through it? How would you best advise? Barbara, yes.
Yes, I just want to clarify. There are certain conditions that the zoning hearing board imposed on the property as part of the proposed subdivision. All of those conditions were reduced to a written document called the Declaration of Restrictions, which I did not realize until tonight that had not yet been circulated to the board members. I've reviewed it. It's been revised. These conditions are, if the subdivision occurs the way it is being proposed, one lot will actually have two residential buildings on it. And as a result, the conditions are going to affect that lot so that there won't be any non-residential use on that lot of any nature whatsoever. So we would eliminate any short-term rentals, boarding houses, things of that nature. And that lot will retain its residential character as required under the zoning ordinance. And that declaration is to be recorded before any final subdivision plan or deed of subdivision is approved and recorded at the recorder of deeds.
So you mentioned short-term rental. Are long-term rentals permitted?
Well, long-term rentals in that if there's a family member or somebody coming in wanting to live there and rent the property from the property owner, they can. It's to prevent a constant turnover of tenants at the property.
But even 12 months would qualify as a long-term rental.
Yes.
Thank you, Barbara, for informing us. Will that document be circulated? Well, I guess it depends on the outcome of today's meeting.
I mean, if you gentlemen have access, I can make a copy and email it to you right now.
I think that'd be helpful while
Yeah.
we proceed with additional discussion.
Okay.
Barbara, can you just tell us what is short-term rental versus what is long-term rental?
Short-term rental was to prohibit, the essence of the restriction was to make sure that the residential character of the property remains in effect. So a short-term rental would be like an Airbnb where somebody comes for a weekend, or it's being used as a boarding house for like a week or 2 weeks. Long-term rental would be more like somebody owns the house, but instead of that property owner living there, they have another family or another individual that lives there for a long term.
No, I understand the big picture. I'm wondering more specifically, are you talking 6 months, 3 months, a month?
We just made the definition as set forth under the zoning ordinance. And to tell you the truth, I don't know if there's any set time frame per se. I think it's not so much time frame. I think it reflects on the frequency of people coming in and out.
Okay, thank you.
But Barbara, can I ask a question? Excuse me.
Who is this?
This is Supervisor Grenier. Sorry. The term short-term rental is one that the township has addressed for other reasons in the past. Is that definition that you're referring to be consistent with that?
Yes.
With the other regulation? Okay.
Yes. The whole premise was to assure that anybody who lives at that property is using it as as a primary residence, whether they are the actual owner or they're renting it from the owner. It's to prohibit somebody from renting a room or somebody from saying that the house could be used for a weekend, for a vacation getaway or something of that nature.
Maybe I'm a little slow to the take on this one, but what is it about this property that this is such an issue?
Because when the property is subdivided,
Yeah.
the one lot is going to actually hold 2 houses on it. There are already 2 houses that exist, and the way they're subdividing it is going to create 2 separate houses on one lot.
Oh, okay.
So there's going to be one house remaining on one lot and that there's going to be 2 houses on the other lot?
Correct. The new lot's going to have a new house constructed. The remaining lot's going to have 2 houses on it because they're not tearing down any structures.
Yeah, did anyone ask at the zoning hearing board why they wouldn't just subdivide it to 3 then?
I don't think it came up. I think it was because of the size of the property and everything. I know they did the lot lines, and their engineer can explain for purposes of frontage and things of that nature. That's why they did it in this way.
Okay. But to sell this piece of property now, they're going to have to sell a piece of property with 2 homes on it.
Correct. Unless they keep it for themselves.
Well, I mean, just someone down the road this is not a normal residential piece of property that is going to transact in the township unless it's subdivided in the future.
Correct.
Or it's sold to a developer and they knock down the 2 houses and build something else. I'm not sure that makes sense, but.
Correct. And that was that was the condition that was the driving force behind having a restriction placed on that lot.
So we can get copies of that, right?
Yeah, I just emailed it out to you. You should have it.
But to address Adrian's question in another way, if the existing property with no changes is sold, it's selling one property with 2 residences on it as is, right? So
2 houses.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
So that aspect is not changing.
All right. Okay, I see. All right. So this is not a reconfiguration. This is just taking one lot and splitting the 2.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And the variances that were sought were due to and again, just to reduce it so we're all on the same page, the variances that were sought were due to the fact that the one remaining property that is carved off does not currently meet all the standards necessary for a subdivision, and therefore necessary to seek those variances to be permitted to divide.
What happened was the new lot number 2 would not meet the minimum lot width or side yard setbacks. So they needed to get variances for that. Otherwise, it would meet all other requirements for subdivision under the zoning regulations.
What did it?
I think there's a front yard setback requirement that they needed a variance from as well.
Yeah.
Off of Makefield Road.
Okay. And is I guess another just question as I'm getting up to speed
Yeah,
on.
it was for the 80-foot front setback.
And the other question I have would this thing be subdividable with a house being developed if they just took the corner lot and subdivided that into a separate property?
I don't know offhand.
Then you wouldn't have the variances. I'm just curious why they tried to squeeze it in the one side when they had more room on the other.
There was an explanation. I just don't remember it off the top of my head.
Under that.
In the, sorry,
Yes, this swath of property on the lateral to the central house is actually more square footage. It's more consistent with the neighborhood. If you look at the neighborhood and are familiar with the neighborhood, our variance doesn't speak to today's standards, but was consistent with what the way to develop the neighborhood. We thought it gave better character to the neighborhood to put this new proposed house between the existing house and the neighborhood, as opposed to putting it on a corner. We also would like to maintain the privacy of the Victorian on the side street and not have a house in front of somebody's front yard, essentially. So we did it from an architectural standard and from an aesthetic standpoint.
Okay. All right, I think I understand that.
See, it's where the mouse is where the proposed property is. You can see that neighborhood. There's houses to the right, the front and back. You can see how the lot is contingent with the other properties on there, whereas the property that's on the corner directly of Sutphin Road and thing is a smaller lot. And there's a Victorian home that's original to the area that it would not make a lot of sense.
Okay. Okay. All right, that makes sense what you just said. I was just curious on paper.
from an impervious coverage, we have no issue. That I saw in the zoning hearing board minutes that was asked, and just wanted to clarify that, Andy, with regards to your report, I saw that there were some additional modifications to some of the calculations. Or in terms of impervious area, is it still satisfactory?
Well, I mean, we commented on it, and so I had a conversation with the design engineer prior to the meeting some point last week, and they indicated that they would make the necessary adjustments to the plans and the calculations to make it a will comply. So right now, as they showed it, the proposed driveway was made of, I guess, crushed stone, and they indicated that was not an impervious area. And as our ordinance indicates that 50% of that, if it's a permeable pavement system, the ordinance indicates that 50% of that can be counted as pervious and 50% impervious. So they would have to make that necessary adjustment.
Is that 50% necessary to meet the requirement?
To meet the
So if I rephrase that, but for having the 50% addition from that driveway, will the property meet the minimum standard?
You mean, would it be underneath the maximum impervious area for the lot?
Would it be underneath the minimum?
No, there's a maximum for
There's a
imperv.
maximum, there's not a minimum.
Sorry, yes, maximum. Would it be under the maximum?
Depending on whether, I mean, they could adjust the configuration of the driveway. They have a proposed shed that is going in the back, which they could make smaller. They could make the house smaller. I mean, I'm confident that they could make the necessary plan adjustments to get it under the maximum.
The reason I'm asking is because in the zoning, and this is, the planning commission's duty is not to fight the zoning hearing board's battles, but that was asked and dismissed as not an issue in the zoning hearing board. But what we're seeing now is that it is not as clear as was portrayed in that meeting. And so that gives me concern.
So if I may, Mr. Rush, what happened was they came in with a proposed plan, but I don't know if they had all of the calculations set out. They wanted to move forward to see what they could get. So if it turns out that they don't meet the impervious surface calculations as required, their subdivision will not go through unless they either comply and meet it or get the appropriate zoning relief from the zoning hearing board for impervious surface.
Very good.
Yeah, with respect to that comment, with the 50%, we will be able to readjust the size of our stormwater management BSP to account for the 50% for impervious, so that should not be an issue.
I believe that their question was, are you able, the maximum impervious area for the lot is 18%. And your proposed right now is at 16.9%. So I guess the question would be, you know, with that addition of 50% of the driveway area, are you still under 18%, or do you have to make adjustments to the plan to meet that 18%?
We can meet the 18%, yes.
Yeah, we'll have to just go back. All right, we'll just have to go back and just verify that with the size of our driveway.
And if I may make a suggestion, I believe there are a cheat sheet, for lack of a better term, on how to calculate impervious surface coverage. So you can do the actual square footage and then determine whether it is 18% or less.
And that driveway, but for installing a...
We did it using the formulas that were provided in the website.
That driveway will never be permitted to be paved in a traditional fashion, meaning a non, in a manner that would otherwise raise that beyond the maximum.
Right, it
Yes.
would essentially be
That's why you see
recorded
gravel in the
as,
driveway.
as a stormwater management best management practice.
Right.
And then there would be an operation and maintenance agreement that is included for that.
Sure, I'm not concerned about the current owners because they're well aware of that. I'm concerned about future owners who are not as well aware of that requirement and the inability to pave.
That stormwater operation and maintenance agreement would be attached to the deed.
Okay.
So that would be it. That would go with the deed in any sale of the property.
In other words, those agreements as required, I record them up at the Bucks County Recorder of Deeds. So there is a notice of the restrictions.
Just out of curiosity, since we're often faced with things like this where something's recorded, which follows with the land regardless of who owns it, two owners down the road, somebody paves the driveway, what's the town going to do about it?
The township generally will issue notice of violation and either have them rip up part of the driveway, or depending upon the nature of the stormwater management ordinance in effect at the time, have them install or construct additional stormwater management facilities on the property. I've been involved in many cases where
some sort of permit would be needed to get their driveway paved. So it would have to come before your board, and they'd have to file an application. So at that point, it could be deemed that it's through the O&M manual that it would not be permitted.
Mm-hmm.
The
one additional clarification that I want to make on the plans. The plans show existing sidewalk along the frontage of the entire lot. It is not an existing sidewalk. It is a proposed sidewalk In my conversation with the design engineer, I indicated that most likely because that was the plan that was reviewed by the zoning hearing board, that any change to that plan or removal of that sidewalk would necessitate another review by the zoning hearing board. I believe that it's our preference that we would require the sidewalk anyhow as part of the subdivision plan, but I just wanted to make note of that. It is not an existing sidewalk. It's something that's proposed with this project.
And
Comment
can anyone?
of
Sorry, go ahead.
my review letter.
Are there existing?
Ross, if I may, Jim Majewski here. One thing to note, the proposed subdivided lot actually has an impervious surface area of, I believe, 24%. 18% is for the much larger lot because the impervious surface is based on the lot size. So the smaller lot has a larger percentage impervious surface than the much bigger lot. So it's 18 for the large lot and 24 for the smaller one.
Before we leave sidewalks, do any other properties near this one on Makefield Road have sidewalks in front of them, or is that would it be a standalone property with a sidewalk in front of it?
If I may, Ross.
Yep.
There's sidewalk that goes all along Makefield Road from Big Oak Road past the Penwood Middle School up to the Lutheran Church, and then it stops. This would continue at an additional 350 feet up the road and get us closer to closing that gap to eventually get down to Makefield Elementary.
Good. Thank you, Jim. That was helpful.
And I just looked on Google Maps on that side of the road on Sutphin. It looks like the sidewalk is on the other side of the street on Sutphin. So I guess I would just look at that. Like, is that something with the sidewalk on the other side of the street? Is that something that we would even want to go down that side? I'm just asking.
Yeah, you are correct, Mr. Costello. The sidewalk is on the other side of the road there. This would allow people from Fayette Drive in that neighborhood to walk through their neighborhood and then get on the sidewalk and then continue on down.
Okay. All right. That's that answers my question, Jim. Thanks.
The sidewalk's on the church side, right?
Yes.
Yes. The existing. And then also, pursuant to my conversation with the design engineer last week, they indicated that the remaining items in our review letter dated April 22nd would be a will comply. So I don't, is that still the case?
Yes, it is.
Dawn, Adrian, any other questions, concerns? So
no, I guess the only other question I have, for Jim and Andy on these setback discussions on the variances, they've all been approved already?
That is correct.
Yes, they've obtained the variance.
Okay, so all four of those, you said the requested zoning variances, they've already been done.
Yeah.
I don't,
What?
Mr. Majewski, I don't have a record that they got a variance for the front yard setback. My records show it was side yard and lot width, not front yard.
Well, you know what? Looking at it, I was wondering why they needed a variance from that, because our ordinance 200-63 allows for an exception for front yard setbacks, in that if you are following the existing setbacks for existing homes on either side of the property, you're not required to go ahead and push a house back. So we don't have that goofy staggered look where you have one house setback at 67 feet and the other one is 65 feet, and you're pushing it back to 80. So this is in line with the other houses. So if there was no variance granted, that's why, because it was not needed, because there's an exception for the existing alignment of the houses on either side. So the houses were all in a row.
And with that, that would also involve the setback of 80 feet from the right of way for Makefield Road.
Correct.
So those two items, as noted on page 3, are not required.
Correct.
Okay.
And go ahead.
No, go ahead, Adrian, go ahead.
I'll just and just make sure I heard it right. The 7-foot setback for the garage was approved.
Yes.
Okay.
So just because, because something's been approved for a variance, we don't necessarily have to agree with the recommendation of that variance. I mean, I understand.
No, you're held to that variance. That variance is approved. You have no power to weigh in on that. Correct, Barbara?
Correct, because it's an independent body that gave the variance.
Okay. Had this come before us before it had gone to zoning, we could have weighed in on it.
You could have weighed in on it before, yes.
Yeah, because I'm just wondering, because if I look at on Google Maps, I look at a garage and I look at what looks like the layout of the garage, they're going to essentially reconstruct the garage anyway, because it shows a street facing entrance, I think, on the drawing, and those are 2 windows right now in the existing structure.
Based on what they said at the zoning hearing board, that garage was supposed to remain.
Yeah, my guess is they're going to reconstruct it so there's doors in the front.
Of the garage door and going from lateral to medial to front to back. Garage.
I didn't understand that.
Yeah, I'm a little lost here.
So if you look at
The intended plan is to change the garage from the garage door going from lateral to medial, east to west, to north to south.
Is the existing garage being ripped down and rebuilt?
No.
So then how are you changing it from east to west to north to south? Just throwing on some doors?
No. The garage will be, the windows will be sealed from the garage line from north to south. The doors will be, the garage, not an issue with the geographic area of the garage, is more than ample things. We'll be basically reconstructing it so the garage doors will be going from the east to west side to north to south.
So you are, when you say reconstructing, you are rebuilding it?
No, we're taking out windows, sealing the windows, trimming the appropriate areas, then cutting a hole in the existing area where the windows were, putting a garage door and sealing out the back window in the back. The 4 corners of their property will also be contingent. The roof is also.
I didn't catch half of that.
You cut out of that last sentence, but I think we got most of the intent here.
So essentially,
the intent is to have the garage come out the front, just like it's shown in the plan, with the new doors where the driveway is.
okay. So they're keeping the roof and the foundation or the slab, and they're just redoing all the walls to accommodate front entrance rather than side entrance.
Correct.
Two walls. Yeah,
Two of the walls.
Two of
Two of the walls. You're right. Fair. Okay. All right. So they're not completely demolishing it and putting it back. They're just remodeling it, redoing it.
Rehabbing.
Because that was my question. If they're redoing that much, couldn't they just have moved it 3 feet,
Mm-hmm.
get it 10 feet?
Jim, can I ask you a question? Russ, do you mind if I ask Jim a question? Is there anything in our ordinances my permitting days, where there's some percentage of a rebuild that would push you into having to follow the same rules as a new build in our ordinances. And some townships and states there is. I don't recall there being anything specific in ours, but I just want to make sure that they don't get stuck dealing with something like that after the fact.
I do not believe there is.
Okay.
That answers that.
And Barbara,
Yes,
has the, who approved the declaration of restriction?
I did, and I had my partner at the firm who does real estate work just look it over as well. So it was drafted by the attorney representing the property owners at the time of zoning, but we since reviewed, modified it, and have circulated it as the final version, which is what I sent to the board members here.
Who else was it circulated to for the township?
It was, I believe I may have had Mr. Majewski involved, but it was the conditions of the zoning approval that we were matching.
Okay.
So I want to ask another unrelated question. The letter we received from April 4th, 2022. No, I apologize. Give me 1 second. There was a question with regards. Here it is. From March 13th, 2022. I apologize. From the Tom Roche, the traffic safety officer, commenting on the line of sight issues with regards to the corner property, and that will be created, and suggested removing some of those bushes that are existing currently, I believe, on Makefield. However, the recommendation for the trees, for the street trees to be added, how do we marry those two issues one another?
Well, there's two ways. One,
The problem with the bushes is that there is a height of sight. When there is a car coming out of a driveway, there is a 3.5 feet height of a sight distance. Anything that is from 0 to 3.5, maybe a little bit more than that, is considered an obstruction to sight distance. So all the shrubs that are within the sight triangle that are between 0 and 3.5 are an obstruction to sight distance and should be removed. When you planting trees, the trees are typically 2.5 to 3.5 inches caliper, and the canopy of a tree start about 7 feet high. So they are above sight distance. And they will be set back also. So that's the answer to it.
And they'd also be set back if there's going to be a sidewalk in that same general area. I'm looking at the same picture, I think. If there's going to be a sidewalk that would go where that tree or shrub, I'm not sure what that is exactly, but the street trees would be on the house side of the sidewalk versus, which would further improve the sight line.
correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Any other comments, questions? I want to note that I think there was a number of near neighbors who had numerous comments at the zoning hearing board, and we will of course make time for public comment. I believe after a motion is provided, if one is provided. I do want to note that, but before we proceed with that, any additional questions, comments from anyone online? Especially in light of the variances that have already been approved. Do we have a motion with regards to the proposed subdivision?
I'll make the motion. I'll make the motion that we approve Plan 686, the Giannakova minor subdivision, subject to entry of, I guess, the declarations of covenants, conditions, and restrictions that Barbara circulated to us a short while ago, subject to full compliance with the Remington and Vernick April 22nd letter, and subject to the issues we just discussed that were in the traffic safety officer's recommendations about the line of sight.
Thank you, Tony. With that in mind, do we have any public comment?
No public comment online.
Do we have a second for that motion?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Well, what were the, do we entertain what the objections were? Or do they have to be online?
Which objections?
Well, I
are
thought
you
there was one about objections, but comments from, someone made a reference that there were a lot of comments from neighboring.
So I did make a comment that at the zoning hearing board, a number of neighbors took issue with the proposed subdivision.
Oh, okay.
But that
Right.
that is not necessarily my
Issue.
That's
Yeah.
not my issue. This is a public forum, and they certainly could come forward and repeat those same objections.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and if I just may add, I think some of the objections had to stem around the existing use of the property of the existing house and some of their concerns regarding that. And that's really taken up partly in Barbara's declaration of covenants on the property.
That's in the same neighborhood we had an issue a couple of years ago, isn't it? Ballpark?
You're talking about the short-term lodging issue which was, and for the folks at the meeting room, that why short-term lodging is, and that's their official name, not short-term rentals. I have the code open here just for reference. But yeah, that's generally right down the street. I think this one is around 1706 based on some of the letters, and I think I want to say 1710 might have been the one that there were concerns about previously. Could be totally wrong about that address. But
I'm not surprised that was an issue raised.
Yeah.
But it was a different property.
Yeah,
different property altogether.
Same neighbors.
Essentially.
Okay.
So, yeah, I guess I'm just gonna say I will approve this just to get it through the machine, but I'm not sure what we're actually approving because it's already been approved.
It hasn't been approved. They only got zoning relief in order to proceed with subdivision. They're in front of you now to get your comments and recommendations with respect to the subdivision plan.
Okay.
But Adrian, I think what you're saying is, in light of all of the variances that have been approved, there's less to debate about this particular subdivision proposal.
It's more or less a thumbs up or thumbs down without much input as to the variances at all.
I guess that's
with no input as to the variances.
Yeah. So essentially, when it comes to the Board of Supervisors, we'll want to make sure that they're compliant with all the comments from Remington Vernick and whoever else. We'll want to especially go, look at the tree issues as we always do, as you could as well. We'll want to make sure that the stormwater management is meeting all the requirements as you all have asked as well. We'll just make sure as they get closer to final that they check that box, and any other issues, let's say, that may be on from a technical perspective, that they're able to comply and have shown that they're able to comply with those issues moving forward. And that's, I think everyone has the question on, hey, there's two houses here. It's not the norm, right? That you have two houses on a lot, so that makes people think it is what it is. but that's already been approved by the zoning hearing board.
Yeah.
But we can follow up with the technical details once they reach compliance at the supervisors meeting. That's all.
So, yeah.
I think that clarified a lot for me, because especially in looking at what happened in front of the zoning hearing board and hearing a little bit more detail tonight, there's already, as Supervisor Grenier said, as long as there's already two properties on there, and this doesn't change that. But if we don't approve that, that doesn't change anyway. So I understand a lot more. So I appreciate everyone's help in educating
Yeah.
Planning Commission.
Yep.
All right, there is, but for other comment, there is a motion on the table, which I do not recall. I apologize if it was seconded or
I
not.
seconded it.
That's right. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? It passes. Thank you very much, everyone. On to our second item for the evening. I apologize. Let me get the agenda in front of me. The second item is number 687, Charles Bain Middle School Addition. And Mr. Brzezinski, would you be so kind as to again give us a quick background here?
I think he walked away from his computer for a second.
I think so too. We'll give him one moment to rejoin.
He's on IT duty right now.
I don't know if Mr. Pokel is familiar, because I know the middle schools have just been in front of the Board of Supervisors for major renovations with respect to the cluster of middle schools right there. So I don't know if Mr. Pokel can give a summary of what's going on.
I certainly can.
For
I
Mr.
mean,
Majewski.
he's back, and so if he wants to, he certainly has more historical knowledge of this than I do.
Yeah, and actually, I could just give you a brief
Oh, there he
overview.
is.
Good evening. The school district is planning to rehab the Charles Bain Middle School. And as part of that, they're demoing part of the building, reconstructing a newer section of it for an administrative wing in the southwest corner of the building, and doing some minor realignment of parking and such. And as part of that, they'll be actually reducing the amount of impervious surface over what was previously approved on the prior site plan. And if the applicant would like to take over from there and run us through the whole project, I think that would be helpful for the board of the Planning Commission.
Great. Jim, thank you very much. Hope everybody can hear me. My name is Jamie Lynch. I'm with Dewey Engineering, and we're the school district's project manager for the Bain Middle School renovation. You know us a little bit from past history because we were also the project manager for the Penwood renovation several years ago. And the reason that we're before you this evening is to introduce you to the changes in the Bain project, because in actuality, the Bain work was approved under a prior land development approval with the township. So with your permission, I would like to introduce our team, and then I have a short presentation to run you through the details of the project, which will allow you to see the building and also ask any pertinent questions. So without further ado, I want to first introduce Tom Smith, who's the new superintendent of schools in the Pennsbury School District. Probably a new face to many of you, but you've seen some of the work that he's done recently. Also with us is George Steele, who's the newer facilities director in the Pennsbury School District, who we've been working with on a number of different projects. And also Travis Bloom, he's an old timer. He is the principal of Bain Middle School. So we're lucky to have all of the knowledge that he brings with relation to the building. Almost in center square is Mark Morella, Mark M. He's with KCBA Architects. He's the project lead architect. for KCBA Architects, and to my right is Terry DeGroot with Terraform Engineering. He is the civil engineer for the project. So in short order, several months ago, we started working with the district on this project to provide some upgrades to Bain Middle School. We assembled the team, and we've been working on the design ever since. And if I have permission to share my screen, I will jump in to a presentation. Hopefully I have that permission, right? How's that look for everyone? Do you see a presentation popping up?
Got it.
Okay, I'm just gonna make that an actual presentation, I hope. There we go. Are we on board? Okay. So just a little bit of history here. On this slide, I'm just sharing with you the original plan for Bain Middle School, which was submitted as a part of the Penwood renovation project. And the idea at Bain was that we were only doing exterior work, exterior site work, adding a new visitor drop-off lane in the front of the building out on Big Oak. Let me get my highlighter here. Working. We were putting a new paved area directly in front of the school that was going to be used for visitor drop-off, more accessible to the front door. We were also doing some improvements to the bus storage facility that's on site and some parking changes in the back. All of the work was outside of the building, and there was not a building addition included. That was part of the bid for the Penwood Middle School project, and the district at that time, due to budgetary concerns and also some discussions about Charles Bain being the next school building to be renovated by the school district, the board elected not to proceed with the work at that time. But I believe the district received full and complete land development approval, and what you see before you on these plans was recorded with the plans at that time. So this land development submission is before you for consideration as an amendment. So the new Bain Middle School renovation addition has the following bulleted features in accordance with what the district was looking for. We're relocating the main secure entrance of the building and the main office suite to the side of the building where the parking lot and the buses go. So it will no longer be in the front of the building. The sidewalk that goes to that front will disappear, and the main entrance will have a secure vestibule consistent with modern day school design. As a result of that, we're creating an addition of some 7,800 square feet plus on that side of the building, which we'll share with you in a moment. This allows us to create the new office suite area, and the office suite replaces the existing and undersized music, choral, and drama classrooms. So the addition is really comprised of new music, choral, and drama classrooms, as you can imagine. Inside the building, however, we are updating it for a new 21st century school. So we have a cafeteria renovation, just a caf, not the actual kitchen. We have classroom, we'll call them spruce them up upgrades. So new flooring, some new paint, new window blinds, etc. Nothing that we're relocating walls to any great extent. We have new family consumer science classroom, upgraded science classrooms, and also STEM classroom upgrades, all within the walls that we have now. There'll be ADA and security upgrades inside the building. This summer, we're embarking on a project to remove hazardous materials from the building. That is asbestos in the floor tile that's been there for years. And then the project includes new energy efficient HVAC, and to everyone in the district's joy, including cooling. So we will have central air conditioning in Bain Middle School. There'll be new energy compliant roof, and there will also be new windows across the entire elevation of the school building. And then finally, new and improved technology inside the building, consistent with today's learning environment, and also to support virtual learning, and also new and upgraded life safety systems. So that's kind of the components that are included in the building. And I just also wanted to have someone from the school district speak to the need in Bain. I think we've tagged Travis to the principal to identify some of the other needs and the educational improvements that'll be made as a result of these improvements. Travis?
I think just a couple highlights to really touch upon is creating some different style spaces to bring us up to 21st century learning to match what's going on in the other middle schools is really important. Between our FCS room, our new STEM rooms, our Ignite program that will deal with robotics, coding, 3D printing, and obviously the new entrance to Bain that provides a really safe and secure school building. And I know that the kids and the faculty and staff are really excited about the air conditioning, especially in those August and September days and those end of May, June days when it gets really hot in that building, and they are middle school children and lots of different smells illuminate throughout the hallway. So I know that is a really big thing that our staff is excited for. And even the upgrades to the windows with the energy efficiency, and that we can use different spaces inside and outside the building that we really can't right now because of, I'm sure you drive by the building and see what it looks like. So we're really excited about all those new upgrades, the new classroom spaces that are being created to put us in line with the other two middle schools.
Great. Anything else from the district, Tom or George, anything that you'd like to add before we move on? Okay, hearing nothing, I'll keep going. So just by comparison, I just wanted to share with you the land development submission of 2016 versus the new one here in 2022, what the differences are. As I mentioned, Bain was a part of the Penwood Middle School submission, and there was no renovation in the original plan. There was additional parking and additional impervious in the form of asphalt in the original plan. And we rearranged the bus and the visitor parking and added that lane that I showed you on the plan for additional parent drop-off. The other thing in that plan is that the Big Oak driveway entrance was modified significantly, and the Big Oak visitor parking that's out there on the street was eliminated. When we go to 2022, what we've done is add the renovation that I spoke of and the additions. There is no additional parking loop. And the net result is a reduction in the impervious coverage being added to the site. We have limited parking lot changes. The project before was really a large parking lot project. We have limited parking lot changes, and instead the district has elected to put its dollars into the educational program and into the inside of the building, which I'm sure in the wake of COVID is a better value for the district and a better investment in the children. The Big Oak entrance remains as is. We are not modifying that now. And the visitor parking is being relocated so that visitors can come directly into the entrance. So while in the plan that you'll see tonight, we're leaving the parking in place out on Big Oak, it's not intended to be used for visitor parking. And really the reason that we're leaving it in place right now is just for overflow parking in the event of a large event. It shouldn't be used on a daily basis like it is now. Just one other note, there is no school population growth anticipated at Bain. We're not doing the renovations to accommodate some larger population of their staff or students that are coming to Bain. So I just wanted to make that note for you this evening. Once again, I just wanted to share with you the site plan, the old site plan, where I'll start from the bottom. The parking spaces on Big Oak were eliminated. We were adding a traffic lane in front of the school with visitor parking. The main entrance would still have been where it is today. We were modifying the Big Oak entrance, expanding the bus parking area and the bus storage area. There was actually a fueling station being added to Bain in the old plan. That is not happening in this plan. And some minor sidewalk and parking modifications in the back of the building. If I go to the new plan, there's a lot happening here, but I wanted to show you that, first of all, the colored lines, the yellow is the bus traffic, the turquoise is the car traffic. And I just wanted to let you know that the traffic patterns for buses and cars after the project is done will remain as it is today. So I'm sure those of you are familiar that the buses run from one middle school to the next and to the next. We have 3 middle schools on the site. So that traffic pattern will remain the same, and we'll end up with the same number of bus slots for buses, but we think the arrangement that we've put together here is a little safer than the existing arrangement. The car traffic will remain in the same pattern that it does now. They'll loop in the back around a new small fenced-in area that houses mechanical equipment at this location. And what we've also done for moms and dads and students is added a canopy to the outside and a sidewalk so that in inclement weather conditions, instead of backing children up in the building, we do have a place outside with bollards that would protect them a little bit from the weather and really expand that parent drop-off lane a little bit, making it more efficient. As I mentioned, the entrance to the school would be taken away. That sidewalk would be gone. Our new visitor parking is in the front. We'll call it the front of the building. It's really the side of the building. Visitors, students are all entering here through a secure entrance. And this is the ultimate location of the main office area. And what you see here is the outline of the old building and then the addition here. So our new music classroom center is located here in the building. So we're not expanding the bus parking area. We have a new main entrance that has the appropriate security for a modern day school. The rear parking area remains the same, and our traffic patterns remain as they are now. So that's a general overview of the new plan. A couple of items for the land development process that were included in the plan submission that Terry made. We're providing for 196 parking spaces in the plan that was submitted. 171 are required based on the count. And actually, in the time since the submittal, we've made a couple adjustments on the site plan, and we can actually add 5 spaces to the plan. So that would be in the final plan submitted by Terry. That'll get us up to 201 spaces and provide the same number of spaces that the school has now on the site, and it includes the required handicap parking spaces. From a site perspective, just wanted to point out a couple of things that were mentioned in the letters. Overall, in yellow, you'll see that in the proposed condition, the new impervious is lower than what was previously approved. So I think that overall that is a good thing. One item that the engineer, the township engineer, pointed out is on our plan submissions, our front, side, and rear yard setbacks were incorrect. Those are incorrect numbers that are in turquoise, but I know that our rear and side setbacks remain unchanged from what was previously approved. Our front yard setback is modified slightly, but because of the new addition. The existing condition is 122 feet. The requirement is 100 feet. Our ultimate location will be between 100 and 122 feet. So we'll still be compliant. I can show you that if I went back to the plan. Here is the setback line dotted, and we can make those corrections on the plan when it's submitted. And you can see that the building addition is within the setback limit. At this point, it's time for pretty pictures. I mean, architecture. So I'm going to ask Mark Morella to give me a break and share some of these images. And Mark, you just give me a healthy beat and I'll change the slide for you, buddy.
Okay, will do. So this is from the existing parking lot. This is the new addition that we're looking at. It's going to give you the, this is the entrance. We'll have a nice plaza in the front so that you're not too close to the traffic. And this is where the secure entrance comes in. You have the big double doors in the middle when the school is open. And then once school starts, they go on the left through the secure vestibule. And then they're, basically screened and allowed into the building when it's deemed appropriate. And you can see there's a volume on the right side. Those are the new music rooms that Jamie referred to. Volume is very helpful for acoustics for music rooms in general, and it helps give the building a little bit of presence because it's relatively low, the existing building. Next. This is just coming in from the Big Oak Road entrance. So this is the view of that corner as you're coming in. You can see it fits within the character of the existing building and the gym, and helps give it a little bit of new life, and really identifies where the main entrance is, where you're supposed to go. Next. This just is going to show you how we're going to upgrade the facade itself. Fortunately, we're able to get rid of all the air conditioning units that are on the front of the building and all over the building, and just create a nice clean facade. The materials are really going to be the same, brick and glass. There's going to be louvers for the mechanical units that we're adding.
The one thing I might put in here is I'm sure that folks in the area are familiar with the Penwood renovation, especially the presence out on Makefield Road, and the windows are really one of the highlights of that project, not only from outside, but inside, and the amount of daylighting that they provided. You can see in most cases, the windows on Bain here have their blinds closed. And I know that from experience at Penwood, I think we're going to see a lot more open blinds in classrooms, basically because of the style of glass and glazing that Mark is going to provide. That gives us an appearance that's going to be very much like what we see at Penwood.
And this is specifically the media center, library area from Big Oak Road. You can see that the volume stays the same, but we really are going to help that elevation thermally. We're going to put some different types of glass that help to control it, and certainly much more insulated glass. The entire envelope of this building is going to be improved, and that's really important because I've sat in that room and kind of felt like a baked potato a while. So it's really going to be nice, and it's really going to help enhance the character of the building.
Great. So in this image, you obviously see the double doors. That is the main entrance. That goes away along with the sidewalk to them. To the right of those double doors is the existing library, which will be converted to media center. So you can see the high windows there. And then to the left in this image of the double doors is the existing administrative space. And that space is being converted to classroom space. So our admin is moving as a part of the addition, and the existing admin space is converted. Speaking of, go ahead, Mark.
That's okay. This is just a typical classroom. Back in the left-hand corner, you see kind of a gray box. That is the new air conditioning unit. Mechanical unit, which will provide air conditioning and heating to the space. And then it'll be vented through those louvers that you saw on the front. And it'll have new energy efficient lighting in the ceiling, and new flooring and some finishes, basically. Not a whole lot different.
Commercial note here for the commissioners is that this summer, all of the asbestos-based tile in the classrooms at all teaching spaces in the building will be removed, and a floor leveler will be installed, which is the precursor to new flooring that'll be installed under this project. So that's the activity plan for this summer. We're under contract. We've got a bidder and a plan. We've got quite the jockeying program set up in order to do the abatement this summer ahead of the next renovation effort.
This is a view from inside the media center. The space is basically the same in envelope, but the ceiling steps up to allow the light in. There's new shelving, new mechanical unit that's on the roof to take care of this space. And then it's really just upgraded to modernize it as far as technology goes. On the right-hand side, you can see a video screen that helps, educationally. The front desk is relocated to be better control students in and out and supervise the students that are in the space. And this is the cafeteria. So this, the way that the existing cafeteria works, there's hallways on either side of it. And then the cafeteria proper is inside of it. So this is a view from the back serving wall towards the corridor. but we opened up the space. We're letting light in on the right-hand side. It gets you directly to some window space, and it's just going to make it bigger, brighter space for the students, and a little bit more variety of seating for them as well. And all the finishes will be new in this space.
And there are 2 enclosed rooms that'll be added to the cafeteria, and I'm sure those of you who have been through it understand that the district in this way is accommodating students with special needs who don't necessarily want to be in the big population of the cafeteria. So we're providing some dining options for students so that we can obviously tend to all of the needs of the student population.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, floodplain issues. We've worked with Andy and Jim on the floodplain issues surrounding the Bain property. I'm sure you're familiar with what the situation is there. And the drawing here is where we're showing the existing floodplain on the site. And so we've had to design in accordance with your ordinances, and obviously to make the project warm and safe, and most importantly, dry. So I just want to explain to you what we've done here. When we take a look at the site and where the floodplain line is, our new addition is just outside of the drawn floodplain line. And of course, we have to design for floodplain elevation. So even though we're outside the line, we still need to raise our floor of our addition in accordance with your ordinance. And so we worked with Andy and Jim and put together a plan on how we would do this. Within the building, any of those items or areas that are within the floodplain, and there's a long protracted discussion on floodplain with all of the elevations, but in places where we have new equipment, new HVAC equipment, new life safety equipment, an emergency generator, we're elevating all of that equipment above the floodplain elevation wherever it occurs. So that's a part of our design. And we're also working to the extent that we can on flood resistant materials as far as Mark's design goes. But in the addition itself, what we've done is created the new addition, and we've raised it more than a foot above the flood elevation. And what Mark has done rather ingeniously is he's included 2 ramps in the existing hallway. And so those ramps will be installed as a part of the new addition in order to make all of the new work rise up above the existing floor elevation and above the flood elevation. So we appreciate all of the work that's been done today, to date on this, and putting the design together so that no additional relief of any kind is necessary. From a schedule standpoint, I know this might be difficult to read. We're obviously in the design phase now here in May of 22. Our goal, as a result of wonderful supply chain issues in the construction market, is to bid this thing in in August, September timeframe, and give the contractors procurement time in order to get their materials and equipment for the job, such that work could start on some small items early, but for the most part, we'll start in the 6th grade wing next summer. Okay, so abatement is this summer to get the floors taken care of. We'll bid the project, we'll know our contractors, and the idea is to start with the first phase of work next summer. And you might say, oh, it's a difficult renovation. How are you going to accommodate the renovation and operate in school while school occurs? Because as you can see here, we're going out until the tail end of October of 2024 with the renovation. Well, we're moving 1 grade out of Bain Middle School and taking them over to Village Park. So we're going to be able to eliminate 1 grade, and that opens up classrooms so that we can have swing space to go from space to space. And we've put together a phasing plan in order to allow renovation to occur while the kids are in school. For any of you that watched, knew, heard of the joy and the fun that we had at Penwood Middle School, we were not able to remove a grade from Penwood when we did that renovation. So it was very difficult. This way, I think we've got a much better chance of keeping the educational process first in everyone's minds, especially in post-pandemic times. So I think we've got a good plan figured out for how to accomplish the goal here. At this point in the presentation, I'm sharing what is the proposed response letters to Remington and Vernick, and also the traffic engineer. I'm not aware of any comments that are really large, at least in my mind. I think they're all generally will complies, and the adjustments like the one I showed with respect to the setbacks would be included in our resubmission. But I'll leave it to you, the Planning Commission. If you'd like to go through all of the comments, we're prepared to do so. I've got Terry here who can spell me, or if Andy or Jim, you have comments in particular, or any of the commissioners that you have concerns with, we'd be happy to discuss them at whatever detail you'd like.
Thank you so much. This was a great presentation. I will certainly open it up to Andy, Jim, anyone, especially from the Planning Commission, if you have comments. I do not see it necessary to go through each of the individual comments in the letter, but feel free to object to that idea.
Ross, I'll ask a question just to break the silence.
Perfect.
If you don't mind.
Sorry, I was
Please.
Yeah, okay.
I guess first and foremost, thank you for the presentation. As the father of two future middle schoolers that currently won't be going to Bain unless we move to another part of town, it's nice to see these things moving along. So that's good to see. And my wife is also, full disclosure, my wife is a middle school science teacher in a different district, so this is no conflict for me, as I'm sure someone somewhere will point out something related to that. Now, I'm not a member of the Planning Commission, member of the Board of Supervisors, so I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I am curious. Two things. One, I'm always amazed when I look at Bain and see that it was actually the extent of the floodplain surrounding Bain, and that the buildings there in the first place. I don't think they would ever get built these days with our current regulations. So I know you're not dealing with a perfect location there with what you're doing. So thank you for accommodating the elevating key equipment. We know that if there's an issue, in my world, I deal a lot with electrical substations, and now we're designing those to 2 feet above the 100-year floodplain, or the 1% annual flood, as you would refer to it. So I appreciate that. I guess the one question I have is, you mentioned a lot of sort of 21st century design, getting things, modernizing things, improving daylighting and airflow, and removing asbestos and other things, basically modernizing the building, right? Now in Lower Makefield for township buildings, and I'm kicking myself now for not making it public buildings, but for township buildings, we do have a requirement that buildings be designed to the LEED Gold standard, not necessarily having to acquire the certification, but to design to that standard. I'm wondering, a lot of the attributes that you call out do go that way, but I'm wondering if you have contemplated LEED or some other green building design standard that you've designed to, or if it's or something else.
So great, Daniel, thank you. Great question. And again, going back in history, Penwood Middle School is a gold LEED certified building. And the way that the district was able to do that, now that was under the old LEED requirements. Now everything is LEED version 5, in which USGBC has upped their game, as they say, and has identified new requirements. The way that the district was able to accommodate that, because LEED definitely costs money, especially for school districts. We've done a number of them. We're one of the firms who got very, very lucky and got a lot of grants for schools to go LEED through the ACE grant program. Unfortunately, the ACE grant program through the Department of Education is no longer available to school districts. So I can't go out and get that quick. What in Penwood's case was $2 million. And the premium cost for LEED Gold at Penwood was about $1.25 million. And unfortunately, we just don't have that ability to raise the budget even more for Bain. And the other thing, you may have heard this, but costs have gone up in the past 6, 8 months, a year, some 20%. So we're really struggling with where we wanted to go with the entire renovation. We think we're in a good spot. That being said, the colleagues at KCBA, Snyder Hoffman, who's doing the mechanical, and also Terry, who's sitting next to me, generally designed to I'll call it a LEED sustainable level. So it's pretty easy to go and design to a silver level rating. So I can, there's LED fixtures that are in the building now, and there'll be more LED fixtures. For the building that we demolished, the contractor will be directed to recycle the materials and not dispose of them in a landfill. The new HVAC system will be designed to exceed the existing ASHRAE codes for ventilation. And the other thing that we've talked about is incorporating some form of bipolar ionization, thanks to what we've learned in the pandemic, to make it even better. From a daylighting perspective, you've seen the windows. The building of this type, just like Kenwood, really lends itself to have the daylighting requirements. It'll also have probably the vacancy sensors to provide lighting controls in the building. So I think that you're getting the aura that we're designing to the standard, but going to the version 5 actual LEED Gold standard is something that is just cost prohibitive for the project at this time.
And this will be my last comment. When you come, I'm on the board of supervisors, so you'll have to look at me again. I apologize. If when you come to the board look at Mr. Majewski shaking his head, he knows. When you come to the board of supervisors, if you might be able to be prepared with your explanation was great. If it's possible to do an evaluation of how close you get to certain certification levels under the current LEED standard, I think that would be helpful for other board members, just so they understand where you're at on the continuum that is LEED.
So
that would be appreciated.
Board members would agree that the township finances pursuing the certification. Thank you, Daniel.
So
this is school district monies. School district monies.
Understood.
I just have a quick comment. I think that the proposed modifications to the prior approved plan look really outstanding for the most part. And I understand the change and removal of the parking loop in front of what had been the main entrance, because you're eliminating what had been the front entrance to the building before. However, I do think that traffic flow should be looked at carefully. I don't have any kids in Bain anymore. My kids left there long ago, but you drive by there on a rainy day, and it's gridlock. Somebody just trying to drive down Big Oak and get around all the traffic turning into the school parking lot. And I imagine it's worse on non-rainy days now than it used to be, simply because a lot of parents may be dropping their kids off in this environment where those kids might have been on a bus before. So you may be seeing more, and I don't know if that's the case or not. I do know on a rainy day, it looks a lot worse than it used to. And so the parking loop out front made sense, but moving that entrance sort of means that parking loop wouldn't make sense. If you're going to move the entrance, you can't have that parking loop up front, because where the kid's going to enter the building. So I understand that you mentioned expanding the drop-off area on the, I guess, what's the right-hand side of the building when you're looking at the map. I think you have to give that a real hard look, not just of expanding the drop-off area, but how to make those cars move faster and how to get them off Big Oak Road more quickly, onto and off of Big Oak Road more quickly. And I don't have a good answer for it. I'm just sort of making an observation about it. That's all.
We thank you very much for the comment. It's been a priority of the design team as well in taking a look at Bain. And of course, we're handicapped somewhat as far as expanding parking, because we're doing it within the within the floodplain. What Travis has done as the principal is he's always been working with parents in order to try to help them. And it is exacerbated not only on a rainy day, but post-pandemic, because we have more parents driving their students back and forth to school. And so the loop that I showed you on the plan is actually longer than it was pre-pandemic. And so after saying that, Travis, I might ask you to chime in. It might be a commercial for Mr. Bloom's YouTube traffic.
My YouTube channel. I need some more subscribers so you can see me in my truck driving with my camera. No, so that's honestly the purpose of the new drop-off area with the overhang, because currently, and I'm sure it was the same when your kiddos were there were 2 walkways where you could walk in the building and that was it. We're looking to expand a walkway the entire length of the building. That way we can pull a whole bunch of cars up. Kids can get out. You know, the kids aren't jumping out into muddy grass. They're going to be able to walk on a sidewalk. There's going to be an overhang. And the same thing for dismissal. You know, we're going to be able to line kids up a lot quicker and move those cars out a lot quicker because of that paved area with the overhang for the weather. What we have done, you know, since COVID hit, we have 2 kind of loops. We have the short loop, which I will say is near our dumpster. So that's usually in the morning. And then we have the long loop that goes the whole length of the back parking lot and comes back around where our cafeteria is in the building. It's not perfect, but it's the best we can do. But I know once we get those sidewalks in there and that overhang, it's going to be a lot more conducive to getting parents in and out very quickly.
Can
And
we
I will
pull
say,
that slide up? I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can we pull that slide up again? Just so while Principal Bloom is talking, we can sort of visualize that a little bit better. Sorry.
that's okay.
Thank you.
I'll wait till you pull the picture up. That way I can kind of walk you through it.
I'm trying.
Take your time. I put you on the spot.
I'm going to stop sharing again and come back. Only because I don't know what PowerPoint is doing to me.
Great. I just think you're doing an excellent job of describing. I think some might benefit from visualizing it while you're talking.
If not, I can just drop the link for my YouTube channel, and it has a really good video in there. I will say it's a different truck I'm in, so it's a little higher elevated than my current truck, but it's still a good video. But honestly, there's, like I said, 2 different loops. There's a shorter loop in the morning. So if you look where on the plot plan, where the mechanical pieces are in the back parking lot there, that's kind of the short loop. So you come around and you do that loop right there in the morning. And then the afternoon is the blue highlighted one where you do get the longer loop. But we absolutely do have way more parents driving right now. The minute it rains, we have an influx of that. And then there's a lot of reasons for that. So I'm hoping that, you know, once we're more through the pandemic, that kids are riding the buses. But I honestly do believe that once we have that sidewalk with the cover area, you will see that move very quickly. And again, we're pretty much done by 5 after 3. The problem is we have a lot of parents that come very early because they want to be first in line. But it's usually like 10 minutes and we're through that line.
Just one other comment here is that at least during the 2 years of construction, with 1 grade being over at Village Park, we've got a staff and a parent load who will be going to Village Park. So I know that we'll have construction personnel that takes their place, but we're talking about parking construction personnel in a lot on the other side of the middle school site that was constructed as a part of the Penwood project. So we're trying to keep them separate and off the site here. So that's one thing during construction.
And just one question too, how many cars do you think the new covered area and sidewalk will be able to handle at once? Like loading or unloading?
So right now there's usually like 2 cars that unload at a time. There's one at that back entrance to the building and one at the front entrance. I'm going to say with, you know, depending on size, 15.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'd say maybe, yeah, I would say it's about 15. You know, as long as they're all following directions and pulling right up next to the first person, that's always the difficult part, is getting the parents to pull all the way up so they're bumper to bumper. That way the kids can all jump out.
No, Travis, they always follow directions.
No, but I mean, I remember that was always part of the problem. Like one kid forgets a book bag or something, has to run back in, and that holds the whole works up because there's no place for the cars to go.
We tell mom or dad or whoever's dropping them off, give them a big hug and a kiss before you pull them in that line, because when they're getting, it's like the commercial, tuck and roll, tuck and roll.
And this is for both loading and unloading?
Yes.
Yep.
So, and I apologize to make you repeat if you said this earlier and I just missed it. Security measures at that door are mirror the security measures at the other entrance?
So we have staff there. So in the mornings when the kids arrive, there are teachers at those entrances. And for dismissal, there are teachers there as well to help with that.
Okay.
And then those doors get locked once our homeroom bell rings at 8:10, I believe, is when we lock those doors.
This question is a little bit beyond the purview of the Planning Commission, but you mentioned that there is no anticipated increase in population with regards to these plans. Principal Bloom, how close to capacity are you currently? And was that ever a consideration or issue to be dealt with?
Like, what do you mean? Like, are we go ahead.
So if there was a 25% increase in student population, I'm sure that would put a strain on resources and capacity that the school could manage. I'm guessing you're nowhere near that threshold that it's problematic.
I'm going to let Dr. Smith take that one because right now, I mean, we are with the new rooms, which will be really nice. We are going to have a spot for every one of our staff members. So currently, we do have a number of staff members that travel from room to room. But size-wise, I believe when they did all the room spaces, based on our numbers and projections, I think going 10 years out, we were in good shape.
Travis, that's correct. In terms of you're not at capacity, but you're close to capacity, 25% more students would put us way over capacity.
No, this is much needed. I'm glad it's happening.
We are too. We're excited. We're really excited. I know the teachers are looking forward to it. You know, our parents, you know, they've seen a little bit. We have our 5th grade orientation coming up this week where we're going to share a lot of this information with them. Our 4th grade parents are really apprehensive because they are the ones that are going to be impacted that 1 year, which is, you know, before it was going to be 2 years of groups going over to Village Park, but now we've got it down to 1. So we really appreciate that condensed timeline. It's not perfect. No construction project is perfect. But we're looking forward to a newly renovated Bain because it looks beautiful.
Cool.
And we appreciate your help, the township's help in general. You know, what we did at Penwood was nothing short of miraculous for the renovation that occurred there. And we had a great relationship with the township, its consultants, but also the community. You know, I know I was a part of, and many of the members of the school district were a part of, you know, making sure that they reached out to let the community know what was happening. And when we do a project like this, everyone makes fun of me, but all of the neighbors have my cell phone number. So they call me directly when there's construction issues. And it's just the easiest way to remedy any challenges so that I can give them a straight answer and I try to get back to them. And of course, now that everyone's texting and doing all that kind of stuff, an easy text can come right to me and I just try to, you know, get an answer back as quickly as I can, you know, before they put it on the, what's it called? The Faceagram, the Facebook, the Instabook, all that good stuff.
Mr. Lynch, what was your cell phone number again?
You'll have it because you'll be asking me about the gold level certification.
Absolutely. And the green roof and the solar panels, by the way.
Yep, there's a big asterisk next to your name on my pad.
You too?
I heard that, Costello.
Sorry, Dan.
Andy, I was going to ask you and Jim, if you have any additional comments that we need to focus in on with regards to.
Well, now that we have this slide up, this was not a plan that was provided to us for our review, but I see the bus parking there on the left side of the building, and you show the bus pulling forward out of its space, but it's crossing over 2 adjacent parking spaces there. You might want to give that a little bit more thought, a little bit more. Can a bus realistically make that turning movement, or do they have to back out and move up the aisleway? And if that's the case, do you have enough room for a bus to back out? Just something that you should take a look at.
It's a very good question. Thank you. First of all, that's correct. We have an updated plan to provide you that doesn't show the walkway, for instance, from the front, but we can provide you with this as well. The next thing to know about the buses, and Travis can hop in after me, is that the buses don't all arrive at once. They arrive intermittently. And so that's what allows them, and they have very specific rules and designations on where to park, because they pull away in this chevron fashion now at times. So that would continue. It wouldn't be like the bus that you see in the image here, where it's going to pull and just domino all the buses that are next to it. The buses come in and there might be one or two, and Travis and his staff have a process by which they allow the buses to arrive and depart. It's, there's a lot of secret and physics behind it. I don't know what I'd have to do if he ever divulged how he does it, but I invite you to go over and sit in the parking lot at dismissal and watch the organized chaos. Travis, I don't know if you have some more on top of that.
No, I mean, that's kind of what happens. We get a group of buses in that come, we call it a first and second run. A number of them come in, line up diagonally, and then we start at the back of the building towards the creek there, and they pull out from there. And once the first one, they all go at one shot. And then after they are out, a second group of buses come in intermittently into those designated spots. And once we get through pretty much the first week of school, we know bus numbers and what spots they're pulling in, and they're consistently in those positions.
And so the buses there are parked there overnight. They're parked there on weekends as well?
Not in those designated spots. That's the bus, that parking gate area that you see towards the woods area. That's where they stay. Yep, where the cursor is.
Okay.
And from my behalf, I just want to thank the school district and their consultants for working with us to make sure they straighten out all the floodplain issues, and to make sure that the site plan and the presentation was good for everyone to follow. So I appreciate that.
The only other thing that I would mention, and we talked about this when we first met with the school district, is that the township has an approved pollution reduction plan that we submitted to DEP that includes a best management practice of stream bank restoration on Charles Bain Middle School site. And so when we had first brought the subject up with the school district, they indicated that they were amenable to working with the township to make sure that we can implement that BMP, that stormwater management practice. That would be, restoring the stream banks, a little bit of regrading, stabilization, and tree planting. And so, I just wanted to bring that up, that the school district has indicated in the past that they are amenable to working with us to make that happen.
Thank you, Andy. Yes, you are. We are. If you submit a plan, we'll provide comments.
Wait a minute.
If I understand it correctly.
What did I get myself into here?
If I understand it correctly, with the MRC, pollution reduction plan, it might include introducing some trees to that stream area. Is that right?
Correct.
One thing the group may know is that there are very few trees around the site. We have some that are in the courtyard and around the outside of the building. What we'd like to do is not remove them, but instead we need to do some limbing, because we have some trees that have overgrown the school. So we need to pull them back just so we don't have leaf collection and things like that on the school, to say nothing of avenues for people to get on top of the school building. But if trees can be added as a part of that program over the creek to the right of the school building, absolutely we want to help the township achieve its goals.
Very good. I believe the planning commission is tasked with approving or not approving the modifications to the plan from the 2016 subdivision submission. Jim, please correct me if I'm misstating.
Yeah, you would, if you were so inclined, recommend approval of the revised final plan for this project, subject to compliance with the review letters by our engineering consultants.
Very good.
I'll make that motion, what Jim just said.
So before we vote, do we have any public comment? Let's assume not, I suppose. All right. Motion has been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion is approved. Thank you very much for your time and for your submission. Excellent job. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
This is a school for the township, and so we really appreciate the ability to collaborate with you on it and do what's good for both the school district and the township. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Appreciate that.
All right. Have a great night.
Thanks a lot.
Hey, Ross, if I may, I
Yes,
just
sir.
want to let you know, you probably noticed someone lurking into our room, Dan McClune. He's actually one of our new employees. So if Dan, you'd like to unmute yourself and introduce yourself. We just hired Dan. Today was his first day starting with Lower Makefield Township.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all virtually. Looking forward to meeting you, some of you in person and working with the board and the committees.
Yeah, Dan's a planner and he just got his master's in city and regional planning or something like that.
Yep.
From Temple.
You got it right. Yep.
So he'll bring an extra set of eyes to everything and hopefully be a benefit to the planning commission and the overall township staff.
Yep. Really looking forward to it.
Thanks.
And welcome. So glad to have you.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
I do not believe there is any old business. Barring any new business, a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Seconded.
Second.
Very good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful evening.
All right. Good to see everybody.
Have a good night, y'all.
Good night.